I fucking love Pepsi! Hello, silly people on the internet. Today I wanted to talk about a really personal addiction I'm dealing with. And no, it's not gambling, even though I do love my fair share of gambling. It's a Pepsi addiction. A Pepsi Zero addiction to be more precise. Or Pepsi Max, whatever the fuck they call it nowadays. But, how did it start? Well, I'm glad you asked. It all started on a fateful day when a monster-addicted gremlin stood up from their chair and said, I have to change something. Now, this monster-addicted gremlin was a particularly silly one and came up with a genius plan of replacing an addiction with another. Truly a work of art. And how did this play out? Well, the gremlin got out of their cave and went to the local grocery store and bought a bottle of Diet Coke. Why Coke and not Pepsi, you ask? Well, I'm getting to it, okay? Relax! This plan worked pretty well for the gremlin. They started drinking less Monster every day and their heartbeat went... well, not back to normal, but still slightly better than before, alright? But then the gremlin came face to face with the cruel realization. It tasted like ass. Like, genuinely, once you drink 2 bottles, it kind of starts tasting like leaves. And it also made my stomach hurt. I mean, the gremlin's stomach, well, we gotta keep the immersion! So for the ones that aren't diehard Coke lovers and haven't clicked off the video, you might wonder, how does the gremlin's story continue? Well, the gremlin went back to the grocery store some days later and they didn't have Coke in stock. Probably because I bought all of the 6 bottles they had, but that's unrelated, alright? The gremlin thought of getting an alternative and they decided to buy Pepsi Zero. 3 bottles of Pepsi Zero to be more precise. When the gremlin got back to their cave, they poured a glass of Pepsi expecting a similar taste to Coke. And it did have a slightly similar taste. The difference was that after 2 bottles it starts tasting like medicine rather than leaves. Which I'd say is a slight improvement. But the most important fact that the gremlin noticed was that after 2 bottles, there was no stomachache. And what do you think the gremlin did with that information? Well, I'll show you! These are only 2 days worth of bottles, by the way. And now we get to the current day gremlin, going on a strong 4-month streak of drinking at least 1 bottle of Pepsi per day. Yeah, I think my entire body is just made out of pure Pepsi at this point. But how does this affect my financial situation? Well, I'm glad you asked. I don't actually have a job. Yeah, I'm unemployed, shocker, right? And YouTube doesn't pay me yet, so all of the money I get is from the monthly allowance the government gives me for still being in school, which is about 55 bucks a month. I also get a few extra bucks from gigs on the side, like commissions or begging. Now, the average Pepsi bottle here costs about $2, so if we quickly do the math, that means that at the very least I'm spending 60 bucks a month only on Pepsi alone. And that is if I only buy 1 bottle per day, which is usually not the case. Yeah, I think you get the gist of it. I'm going broke. And you might think it's just Pepsi, right? You can't genuinely get addicted to it. It can't be that hard to quit. And if we were to only speak about the taste, yeah, you'd be right. It would be pretty easy to just get something else that tastes better, or flavored water, or that sort of thing. But why it's an addiction and not just a drink I really like is because of a really interesting factor that plays a big part in why it's hard to quit it. Routine! Now to explain that, I need to quickly explain something else. Most people that get addicted to drugs are getting addicted because of the feeling they give you. And it's hard to quit after a while because of the withdrawal effects. But let's only focus on more socially normalized drugs. For example, nicotine. Nicotine after using it for a while doesn't even give you that big of a buzz anymore. So why are so many people still addicted to vapes or cigarettes? Is it because of the withdrawal effects? Are they really that bad? Well, in my opinion, no. The withdrawal effects are probably one of the easiest parts in quitting nicotine. It still lingers after a while, but like 90% of the effects go away after the first week. The really hard part is after the withdrawal effects calm down, because then you get hit with the realization of, damn, these things play that big of a role in my life? For example, cigarette smokers. Most of them have some sort of routine they might not even realize they have, like smoking right after eating or smoking before going to the bathroom. These sort of things when you're trying to quit are the absolute worst. Because suddenly after having a nice meal you go for your cigarette and then you realize you quit. And then you guessed it, cravings. Now, I only spoke about cigarettes, but I genuinely believe it's the same thing with my Pepsi situation. I've been drinking Pepsi for over a year now, daily, but remember how I said I'm only on a 4-month streak of daily intake? Well, that's because I did try to quit drinking it. But because of the previous factor, the fact that I've developed a daily routine of drinking a glass of Pepsi each time I finish a task, you could imagine the cravings I got. But at one point, because of the fear of going back into the monster addiction, I've just gave in and stopped looking for alternatives. Is it unhealthy? Definitely. Like, there's no defense. My daily intake is not a healthy amount. But will I ever stop drinking Pepsi? Well, maybe one day. That was my app session for today. This is different from the usual specials I do, but I really hope you enjoyed because I had a lot of fun making this. I'm probably gonna make a specific category for these types of videos because I really want to do more of them without putting them into the same boat as the specials. But you know, as always, stay safe everyone, and stay silly. And please learn from my mistakes and never get addicted to anything for God's sake.